Hello and welcome to the Bex Flex. I'm very happy today to welcome Dilly.
Hi.
Hi Dilly. Dilly is a farmer and she's been friends with Tash and Bex Flex and our channels before that. So we've known Dilly for a number of years. And so Dilly's come here today to talk about farming, what we can do, what the farmers need to do, and how we can help the whole situation with the farming agenda at the moment.
Yeah.
So Dilly, would you like to start by telling us what is your background in farming and a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a farmer's daughter. My dad was a first generation farmer. So we moved to the farm when I was 3 and I've grown up through farming, and I was always involved with planting, helping to plant potatoes and rear calves. From there, I went and worked with horses, but through that, I went to agricultural college, met a load of friends that were farmers, that became farming friends, that many of them still are. I worked on farms.
So were you a young farmer, Dilly? Were you in the young farmers?
I was chairman. I was chairman
Young
of farmers.
Yeah, I've heard all about young farmers. I wasn't living in Devon
farmers.
at the time, but I hear they have good farm dances and parties.
Farmers, that was good. That was good times.
Yeah.
Young farmers. Stock judging, all of it. And from there, I worked on a great big calf rearing unit and a dairy farm for a while. Then I went off and had my children, and my husband and I were agricultural contractors. I've managed a couple small farming estates, and now we have a small farm in North Devon.
So your husband came through farming as well?
Yeah, he's a farmer's son as well.
Yeah, so it kind of is, it runs in families, doesn't it?
Yeah, my sons are both involved in agriculture.
And they'll take over from you?
My youngest has just taken on his own bit of ground, and he's starting to build up his sheep numbers and got a few cows. And my eldest is an agricultural contractor.
There you go.
He's like agricultural petrol head.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
It's all about the tractors.
Is it? It's all about the...
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So you got a very good grounding in farming over, your whole life. You have the authority or the knowledge and experience.
I like to think so. I'm not an expert, but I've got both sides. I kind of know what's going on with the world at the moment, and I can see what's happening with farming,
and how important it is that you speak out now.
So I've been telling people for years and years, if it doesn't matter how many factories there are, it doesn't matter how many supermarkets there are, at the end of the day farmers produce the food, and if there are no farmers,
there's no
food being produced.
So what you're saying is, we're going to talk about what is happening in agriculture, but what you're saying is that you've sort of watched it building and moving towards where we're at now. For how long would you say that you first started thinking, oh, this is a bit...
I've been aware of what's been happening in agriculture for, I'd say, probably about 7 years now is when...
Okay, so around 2016, 2017, you sort of...
Yeah. And then I've been waiting for the farmers to revolt, but they haven't. And I've been quite disappointed.
It is disappointing when people don't revolt, isn't it, Dilly?
It is.
So do you want to tell us what is happening in agriculture? What is it that you've seen building over the last 7 years?
So I think actually it's the only thing that has been done cleverly and successfully, because everything else, there have been people that have seen what's going on and said this is crazy, we're not going along with this. Okay. But in agriculture, it's just rolled and rolled.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying, in other scenarios, you've seen people saying this isn't right, but you feel it's not happening in farming.
It's not happening.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think it may have started to happen now, but it's not.
But it needs a bit of an oomph.
It does need some oomph. It does need.
Give us some oomph, Dilly.
I'm here for a
Yeah, give us a month. So to start with.
So what's happening particularly now is the climate agenda has really taken off and been pushed. Farmers have been blamed for it for a long time.
Yeah.
And
this rhetoric around it being the cows as well and stuff.
Yeah,
it's just
nuts. It's all because of cow farts.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, how ridiculous is that?
It's just crazy.
Let's not forget that carbon is an essential gas in our, you know.
Yeah, I know people that grow in polytunnels and they put carbon bombs in their polytunnels to help stuff grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the carbon thing is, you know, that's another story, but that has certainly been used against the farmers.
It has. So for as long as I can remember, farmers have been blamed for polluting, for cow farts, for slowing up the traffic
with their tractors.
Yeah. So farmers have had there's been a bad public opinion about farmers for a while.
You're right.
So particularly what's happening now with government grants and farm subsidies is the government are paying farmers not to farm more and more. So it was more of a voluntary thing, but now as part of being able to claim farm subsidy, it is getting more, it's being pushed more and more, it's getting more and more compulsory. So for example, in Wales, the Welsh farmers cannot claim any of their subsidy unless they put 10% of their land into trees and 10% into rewilding. So most of Wales is very high up, so they can't grow many crops. So it's mainly livestock. So that's going to be 20% of the livestock in Wales is going to be cut out.
So when you look at it, is it across the whole country?
And then there's other industries that are supported by the livestock farmers. So there's feed merchants, there's the slaughterhouses, there's the tannery, there's so many other industries that are knocked on through that. So that's and it actually mainly in the UK, it's the Welsh farmers that are being targeted the most in that. In the English schemes for subsidies, it is very voluntary, but if farmers have been claiming subsidy, which a lot of them do and a lot of them rely on because of the way that the structure has been laid down, they can claim the most subsidies for rewilding.
So I mean, so just touching on that a little bit, what you're saying there is because of the structures in supermarket pricing of produce and things like that, a lot of farmers can't survive without the subsidies.
Yeah, I think it goes
deeper than that.
I think it does go deeper than that. It's classic, isn't it? You dangle a carrot, you say you have this carrot, and then you threaten to take the carrot away if you don't make certain
conditions
certain conditions and certain standards.
And do you feel that sort of happened quite slowly as well? It's sort of got to that point.
That's been drip.
Is that that's what you're talking about? You've watched over the last 7 years or so. Okay. Yeah. So it's rewilding. So it's sort of taking farmland and repurposing it under the I've been carbon umbrella.
Under the carbon umbrella. So a lot of the maize that's grown in this country now isn't being grown for animal feed. It's all being burnt in biomass boilers for energy. So very, very cleverly, it's the only thing that's been done cleverly, I think, very, very cleverly and very, very gradually, farming or agriculture has been taken away from food production and into other things because it's paid better.
Okay.
So I don't know any other industry that produces a product that just accepts the going rate. That's at the end of the day, when that product's ready, It's just
There's
so
no...
anybody can buy that product. They can name the price. I don't know anything. So I've been selling meat boxes recently with my animals, and I had to price it, which is really strange for me as a farmer,
because you get told what you can sell it for.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. I've never thought about that. There's no free market for you guys.
No, there isn't. No, the supermarkets dictate the price.
Yeah.
Or you take your livestock to market and it goes to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
So
felt quite odd to actually be pricing your products.
Yeah. So you just have to accept what it's going to come. So that's why I say, I've just got a small farm. I've never agreed with subsidies.
You've managed to stay independent and traditional.
I have.
Well done.
But only because I've been able to support it with other incomes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think I've been a complete idiot through doing that. But
other farmers?
Other farmers and
people in the business.
Most people that I was going to say I'm friends, but most of my friends are farmers. So that would be why.
But what you're saying is that so they think, oh, you're mad not to take the subsidies.
Yeah, because it's like free money. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, but it's kind of like, I get you, because it's a bit like, well, if you want to maintain your independence and your autonomy.
I don't like people telling me what I can and can't do.
Neither do I, Dilly, neither do I.
I struggle with that. So that's the reason.
And so, so there's been a slow, sort of quite clever drip,
Yeah.
and also a kind of atmosphere around farmers that they you're right, they've been criticised for a long time.
They've been criticised and
not valued in a way.
No, they haven't been valued. It's kind of like growing up. The impression that I got is, well, you want to be a farmer, bless you. So it doesn't matter if you don't get good grades because you're just going to be a farmer, aren't you?
Just a farmer.
So and you know that's kind of like
that's the vibe.
That's the theme tune that I've grown up to is I can't read and I can't write, but I can drive a tractor.
Well, but you know, food production is pretty key.
It's really important.
Yeah, it's really important.
It's really important.
And the other thing that I sort of didn't realise, which you've highlighted for me, is how much farmers are actually maintaining and looking after the countryside.
Yeah. So I don't know any farmer. They've even, you know, the big farmers. I don't know any farmer that doesn't monitor the wildlife that they've got on their farm, that doesn't have, even before the subsidies with the grass margins in the field and the wildflower margins, that didn't monitor the wildlife. And if they had a bird that appeared, so for example, sorrel buntings support the cuckoos. So cuckoos have been in a decline, and that's because sorrel buntings have been in decline.
But it's the farmers that notice those things.
And it's the farmers
and monitor.
And you know, you'll get a phone call at night. Saw a sorrel bunting today. Not seen one for years.
Lovely.
In my 10-acre corn Irish field, sorrel buntings are back. So you know they get really excited about it, and they are part of the countryside.
Yeah, and you're the guys that have got your fingers on the pulse of the countryside, and you are actually part of. You're in there enough to be part of it and watch these subtleties with
and
birds
know
and
exactly what's happening, and then told that
you don't.
Yeah, we're told that we don't, or there's silly rules.
I think
manage it.
I suppose if farmers have been put down or you know not given that kind of positive narrative around them, then you don't get listened to.
No.
You know.
No.
Because you're just pat on the head.
Yeah.
Farmer.
Well done, good little farmer.
She's crazy, isn't it? So what is the position that farmers being put in now?
So farmers at the moment are can only claim subsidy if they go into some kind of rewilding environmental scheme. So the schemes that I can think of actually at the moment are, I think you can get paid. I don't claim subsidy, so I don't know the exact.
You don't know the ins and outs.
The exact numbers, but I believe you can get £200 or £250 an acre for planting trees. So there
So
are
10 acres would be £2,500.
So that's very tempting. If you've got a 700-acre farm, that's very tempting, isn't
Yeah,
it,
well,
to
you
do
could,
that?
yeah.
And then that land has been taken out of production.
We're going to talk a bit more about late in a bit about what rewilding actually means, what happens to the land in that process, and a bit about that at the end. But so rewilding we'll come back to, but basically if you want subsidies now, you've got to rewild a portion of your farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the other thing that's happened is supermarkets have gradually taken on the monopoly. So I grew up not too far away from here where we are now. My dad used to do a bit of market gardening. He used to grow potatoes and cauliflower and leeks and sprouts, and he used to supply about 5 greengroceries, and that had its own little supportive structure.
So he would go to those greengrocers, sell his produce, and so it was basically farmer direct to...
Yeah, so I think he probably started going along to the greengrocer and saying, you know, with a sample, and saying, I could supply you these. So we used to get a phone call probably twice a week from each of the greengrocers with an order, and then my dad would load up his van with potatoes and cauliflowers and all sorts and take it in really early in the morning to these little shops.
Yeah, so more community.
Yeah, it was a community.
Yeah.
So, and that was sort of shops between Torquay, Paynton and Brixham. And how many supermarkets were about then? Not very many, were there? No, and there were.
I mean, you know, when I was a child, I mean, I can remember supermarkets sort of coming and being a thing.
I can remember the first.
But I remember going to the greengrocers, the butchers,
the butchers,
and you'd go, and then the bakery,
haberdasherers,
all the different shops.
Because we're so old.
Yeah, it's so ancient. But yeah, it's true. You know I remember the excitement of supermarkets in a sense.
Me too.
And also frozen food.
Yeah.
And my mum rushing out and buying a freezer and being very proud of that. And you could buy frozen food. I mean, that wasn't a thing when I was, you know, a really small child.
No, I can remember. Finder's crispy pancakes were amazing.
But absolute rubbish. We loved them.
They looked nothing like a pancake either, did they?
They looked like a sort of crispy pasty, didn't they? A little thin crispy pasty.
They were weird.
But so food, what we buy has changed since.
So food
since
that we
dad's
buy,
time.
So the supermarkets now are they're in control of the price. So they're locking farmers into contracts to supply so much of either meat, lamb or beef.
Or milk.
Well, milk is mainly, there's a few supermarket contractors, but it's mainly Arla and others. So you get a different... Yeah, milk's a little bit different.
Okay.
But it's still the same. You just pay the price that it.
Sometimes it goes up. Sets
mostly it goes down.
But the supermarket sets it.
So the supermarket use wheat and milk as their staples, and they drag the price of that right down because then they can call people in because they're the cheapest for bread and milk for that week. So farmers are tied into 3-yearly contracts. So just look at the last 3 years, how much the price. Goodness. So if you've been tied in here, your production costs, just with the price of diesel, have gone way up. Yeah. But you're still trapped here.
You're still getting paid this amount when actually in the 3 years you're now having
your expenses up here, probably more.
Yes.
So that's a huge problem. What the subsidy, in my mind, farm subsidy does, it's subsidy for the supermarkets, isn't it? It allows the supermarket to name their price, because the farmer's getting their subsidy payments, they're able to let it go at that price. But if they weren't getting that payment,
they wouldn't be able to do that.
They'd have stopped it long ago, and they just said no. We
so
can't
it's kind of the government and supermarkets in cahoots.
Well, do you think?
I don't know that it's planned in cahoots, but the combination.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it probably is, but then I'm, you know me with my suspicious mind.
You've got a suspicious mind.
Very suspicious mind.
Like that.
But I do. I think, oh yeah, you know, there's probably some guys on some board table around behind closed doors that kind of had thought, oh, this will get them in that position.
I'm sure there is somewhere.
But, yeah, because so the position that farmers are being put in is sort of it's been a bit of a slow kind of progression into what we find now, and particularly with what's happened over the last 3 years, like you say, with prices rising, you can understand therefore that they would even more be likely to start rewilding to get the easy money off their acreage.
So then if you're tied into a low price to supply, say, beef to Sainsbury's, and somebody comes along and says, if you plant
some trees
in that 10-acre field,
I'll give you 250 grand or something.
250 an acre for that.
Yeah, exactly. So, perhaps some farmers are having to do it to get themselves out of debt and things.
I'm sure they are.
Survive.
I'm sure they are. A farm, I don't know, a lot of people, well, somebody called in, we're quite remote, and I get a lot of people calling to me to say, I'm running out of petrol, can I have some?
Really?
Yeah.
Does that happen?
Yeah, all the time. And I let them have some petrol, and I say, take my can and bring it back. And a few of them have said they've been holiday makers that have come in, and they said, yeah, I will do. Mind you, I've never seen a poor farmer. And I say, really? I could introduce you to lots. But there's always, because of the way that farmers live, it's quite, and from the outside looking in, it would be quite an enviable lifestyle.
And but again, that's kind of a bit like this rhetoric or narrative around farmers that isn't true. That they're rich as well.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between farmers and landowners.
Yes. But also, I didn't realise, you taught me this, that I thought farmers owned their farms.
You're not giving me kisses.
And that was what, takes your breath too bad. That when you saw the next generation take over the farm, I thought it's because you guys owned the farm.
So some farms are owned and have been in the family for generations. I don't know any that have been able to stay mortgage free for generations. So
they're remortgaged in order to bail out or whatever.
And then in farm, there's a lot of farm business tenancies, and that would appear as though it's a family farm, because farm tenancies work on a 3-generation basis.
Yeah, so that makes it look like they own the farm, but actually they lease the farm.
Yes.
That I was really shocked by that. I didn't know
really?
that. Yeah, I mean, you learn something new every day, Dilly.
You do.
And that was my oh my goodness. So, really, that family are there working that farm, producing the food for the 3 generations. But after that, it could go somewhere else.
And during those 3 generations that they're there, they're so invested, and you can't farm without being invested.
No.
But they are as invested in that land as though their neighbour who owned it would be.
Yeah, of course. And it's not necessarily a given that they'll be able to release it after the 3 generations, is it?
It's not. No, after the 3 generations. So not even currently. In the past, automatically, so father can take on the tenancy to begin with. It automatically gets inherited to his son. And then if there was another generation, it would automatically be passed to their grandchildren. There's an awful lot of clauses that the people that own these farms now are managing to get out of it before the next generation
because it's so hard.
Inherit it.
Because it's so hard.
Because it's hard, and there's all sorts of reasons and
that they would want to get out.
Put in place that they can get them out of there.
Okay. I mean, what? So we need to, obviously, the farmers are not in a very good position. What can they do to help themselves? What can they do to start to turn this situation around?
Right.
So, hi guys, we are back for about the 15-minute time because we got cut off. And we've now resorted to a different mode of recording. So, if we look different, that's why. We're on a different piece of equipment.
So
Dilly, where were we?
We were. You were asking me what farmers can do
to help themselves.
And I said to you, actually, I think it needs to come from the public. I think collectively we all need to change our shopping habits.
Yes.
Cut out, to take the power away from the supermarket. Supermarket at the moment are holding all the power, and we need to take that away. So just by changing our shopping habits. So shop locally as much as you can. Farm shops.
I was about to say farm shops.
Farm shops, independent shops.
Yeah.
Directly from the farmer.
Directly from a proper butcher's.
Directly from a butcher. Just anywhere that's not a supermarket.
Anywhere that's not a supermarket, basically. And direct, because you do direct from the farmer.
I do. I've started doing meat boxes, pork and beef at the moment. Later on there'll be sheep. So there is a fabulous website called Produce and Provide, which was designed by, I don't think he is anymore, but he was a Devon farmer, and he's made this website. I'll give you a link.
Yeah, I'll put the link below, guys.
You can click on a map of the UK and locate farm shops that are near you. Farm shops or farms that provide a service
that you can go to directly.
That you can contact directly. So that's a really good one. There are a few veg box schemes that I don't agree with 100%, but I think at the moment any veg box scheme that is taking away from the supermarket
is still better than.
I think that's good.
Because I do that. I buy from the farm. Veg box.
I'll chat with you.
Yeah, tell me why. Tell me why it's not ideal, but it's still better than the supermarket.
Definitely it is. Yeah, and if you live near a farm, go for a little walk and go see them. Pick your moment. Don't wear white trainers because that really annoys farmers when people turn up on their farms with.
Wear your wellies. Put your wellies on.
Wear your wellies or your walking boots.
Yeah.
And go and say, hi, what do you produce? What can we buy directly from you?
Because we're pretty divorced from our farming community.
We are.
Yeah, we do.
I know farmers that are divorced
from their own
produce. I know dairy farmers that run out of milk and then whip into Tesco's and buy milk when they've got a bulk tank full of milk.
That's bizarre.
It is crazy.
Yeah, but it just shows how far removed food has come from.
I think a lot of farmers
produced
have become disassociated with what they
produce.
They produce a commodity, and they've got to connect back with it.
That it's
because
food.
Of the way that the supermarket contracts has kind of like tied them in. Supermarket and milk contracts.
I knew about the milk. I knew that was years ago that I was hearing about that.
Yeah.
And
every so often there's a big push.
Yeah, and I knew that the farmers were being put in a worse and worse position via the supermarkets.
Yeah.
So, since talking to you a few months back or whatever, I'm buying my meat from butchers now, or direct from you. And all I'm buying from supermarkets is like my cleaning products and stuff like that, loo paper,
that's what I do.
Yeah,
I kind of go once every couple of months and get all the stock up. But I buy a bit of chocolate actually as well.
Yeah, I might be guilty of that, and maybe a pastry or two. So the public have to change their habit first, and start actually, because if the demand's not there for the farmers, they're not going to start producing that way, are they?
They're not going to be able to see away. They're all tied into their contracts, and they're not.
And
until the power comes away from the supermarket, they're not going to be able to see a way out of their contracts. I don't know. We've done so many of these.
I know they've got cut off. Yeah, I think it was on one that got taken, but you were explaining about the supermarket contracts, how you're locked in.
Oh yeah, so supermarket contracts they're normally 3 yearly. So when you begin, you're offered something probably, I don't think they've ever been totally fair. So
So
this
quite
is
a
your,
low.
this is your production cost. This is the supermarket. To begin with, you were kind of probably about there.
Yeah.
Great contract. You tied in for so long, so you could make that work on a turnover basis.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years alone, just one commodity, the price of fuel, which you need for running tractors,
Absolutely.
you need for running generators, just the price of fuel alone has gone up like this. The price of corn, the price of energy, everything has gone. It's more
all
like
of
this,
our living
isn't it?
costs have
it's kind of
just
probably more like that.
It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. Over.
So that's why at the moment more farmers are putting up less and making a little bit more noise, and that's why the No Farmers No Food, that and the Welsh
campaign
subsidies
has started.
That's how that started. So have we said about produce and provide? We have, I think.
The website?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
we
have.
And
I will put the link at the bottom.
And we've said, go back to your town, go to the greengrocers, go to the butcher, go to the corner shop.
Yeah, because if we don't support our local shops and everything anyway, we will end up only having a supermarket to choose from.
That is what started happening anyway, isn't it? Town centres
yes,
are dying,
I think in
outward shopping centres have just taken off.
It's probably because we're Devon and we're fairly rural that we still have independent butchers and greengrocers, but I think there's a lot of high streets that's not a factor anymore, is it?
No.
But you can find your local farmer and
you can do, and approach them and see what they can provide you directly from farm. There might be a few farms that you might not. I'm doing 10th of a bullock boxes at the moment, and getting everyone together is a nightmare. So maybe if there are 10 of you, buy a whole bullock
and then split it between you.
Yeah. There's lots of ways that it can be done.
I think if we just make a pledge not to buy meat from supermarkets, then you will find other ways to get it.
Yeah. I think that's a really good place to start. Start with, and honestly, you wouldn't, if you saw how some of it was processed, you wouldn't want to eat it anyway.
And I've heard for a long time, not just from you, but that the standard of meat in supermarkets is pretty rank anyway.
The British people have so much to be proud of their food production. In the UK, livestock rearing standards are so high. They're way higher than any other country. Our welfare standards and our traceability, and potentially any bit of beef that is produced in the UK
can be
traced back to its holding of birth. And that's amazing, and you can't have that anywhere else in the world, I don't think. Not only can you trace it back to its holding of birth, but you could then trace back every bit of medication that animals been given.
So it's very
amazing.
Yeah. So it's very sort of, you can find out exactly how your food's.
So if you go to your butcher, you can ask those.
Well,
questions.
I do ask my butcher. He can tell me.
Don't ask every bit of medication.
No, but he tells me which farm it's from on Dartmoor.
Yeah,
and he can tell me which slaughterhouse if I wanted to ask him.
Yeah, I know, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that. I like it. So
I like it.
You do pay a little bit more, but I think the meat's better quality.
Yeah, that's it. Well, if you pay more, eat it a little bit less, but then it's a special occasion. Good for everybody.
So that's great. So that's what the public can do.
And then I think from there,
the farmers respond then to that.
From there, the farmers respond. So eventually, and there's several people that are thinking like me. I've had several meetings, spoken to several people. I've starting to get a little collection of farmers together. So eventually what needs to happen in agriculture is we need to be more mixed again. So since World War II, I think farming has been encouraged to be very specialised. Before World War II,
that's interesting as well, though, isn't it? Because
it is,
if you think about it, you would have had a community and then a farm within that community, and the farm would have supplied.
Yeah. Well,
so
I
they
think,
would have done a bit of everything originally, wouldn't
well,
they?
I think because it was more rural, every farm's first goal was to be self-sufficient for themselves.
Okay.
And then it kind of like branched out.
So then anything they had a glut of, they would sell to...
Well, I think they must have always had a product to sell for their income. But they would, because they were living rural, they would have had to have made sure that everything that they needed, they could provide. And then, but since the Second World War, farming has been more specialised. So, for example, my little farm where I live, I can see it's very high up. It's on Exmoor, so it's very high up. It's not very good at growing anything else other than grass. But on our tithe maps from the 17th century, I've got a field that's called Potato Field, and I've got a few little areas that are just like separate in the field that are called cabbage plot.
So they obviously had the areas.
Yeah, and then all our old buildings, you can see how each one at some point has been a milking parlour until it got to the biggest building that was a milking parlour, and then they must have stopped milking.
So you can sort of see the history of your own farm just by looking at the old plans and old...
Yeah.
So really, this change has to be consumer-led.
So it has to... Did I say, though, what the farmers need to do? So each farmer needs to go back to being more mixed farming.
Yes.
So if you grow, you can put some animals on it. The animals will fertilise the ground. Farmers are going to hate to be told this, actually, so we won't do it too much. But that is eventually how it
needs to go.
And how I think it will go, how I think it will pan out.
Well, let's hope. I mean, it needs to, otherwise we
need to all go back to being a little bit more basic, don't we?
Yes.
We do.
Yes, I really agree with you, and go back to locally produced food and what is produced, rather than sourcing stuff that isn't really from our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna... Is there anything else you want to say just on the farming? Because I want to move on and talk about rewilding.
There probably will be afterwards, but right now I can't think of anything.
I think we've covered, and we'll put the website at the bottom if you want to look up your local farmers. And Dilly, you've been doing lots of stuff, getting people together, talking about things. So, I mean, I don't think any farmers watch my channel, so I think we'll be all right. But the general public need to know what to do.
The general public it needs to start from the public, and then it needs to branch out.
And I know that there's been people out there leafleting and doing that sort of thing, but actually it's our behaviour as consumers that needs to change for change to happen. Okay, thank you, Dilly, for informing us about what's wagwan in the farming world. But I want to talk about this rewilding, because you've mentioned before that, farmers are being offered quite a bit of money per acre to rewild.
Yep.
Could you talk into what rewilding, because obviously it's been put in under the carbon agenda, but what's really going on with rewilding?
So what's happening, well, we touched on farm tenancies as well, didn't we? So there are an awful lot of farms in England, let's say, that are actually National Trust owned. And what's happening with National Trust and other farming estates is because they can get so much money now for growing trees, they don't need their farm tenants. So they are ending
the tenancies,
and they're putting their ground that is good, productive ground.
Fertile ground.
Good growing ground. They're putting that either into trees or into rewilding to collect the payments, and then they don't need their tenants.
And so that means the farm is taken out of action. The whole farm, if they kick the tenants off, there's no farming going on in there at all.
So what's happening around me, near a National Trust estate, is first of all, I noticed big, tall deer fences going up. And then I just kind of kept an eye, and they started planting trees in those fields. The fields that they're planting trees in are the really good growing fields. We're North Devon, so we're quite high up. It grows grass, but it grows really good grass, which fattens livestock.
Yeah.
So that's going to trees now. You can't graze where there's trees. And once trees get so big, they have an automatic preservation order on them.
So you wouldn't be able to ever put it back. Once it's gone
into trees, it's not likely that it's going to come back out of trees. So that needs highlighting.
Yes.
And I have spoken to someone who's done another video, and he's put some links up. So I'll give you that to maybe link onto this as well.
Because
so I believe, there is somebody else in Devon that's done some posters that maybe we'll be able to get together. So I believe the National Trust need calling out. Well, people need to ask the National Trust questions.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
but people need to. I don't think anyone's aware, unless
I don't think
they've spoken to someone like you.
Are aware.
And the National Trust has got this kind of reputation for being, you know, sweet and cuddly.
Custodians
of and our heritage and our countryside. But actually, because in the rewilding, I know that they're planting trees, but aren't they also flooding and bogging areas?
So around the landscape around me, the good ground is going into trees. The less productive ground that may be a bit swampy, may have a bit of a stream going through it, they're damming up the streams. I know that there's a scheme for wetlands, so that's probably the next best paying scheme that's not trees to do that. So in order to do that, a lot of the farms, we talked about third generation rights earlier, so a lot of the farms that have got third generation rights, the National Trust and estates are finding little loopholes, or when farmers aren't agreeing to planting trees or rewilding, they're saying, well, in that case, you lose your third generation rights. So I know of 3 examples where that's happened. I've got a link that went in a paper, I believe, or Farmers Weekly, of somebody else. So I'll give you those as well.
Yeah. So basically, if you're in the National Trust,
well, I think,
please email write to them.
Yeah, write to the National Trust. Say what
are you doing?
What's happening to food production in the UK?
If you're rewilding, huge areas, what's happening with food production, and also maybe just this is all being done in the name of carbon footprint. Maybe we need to start asking questions about that.
Yeah. Or if you see anybody, I saw some people planting trees in National Trust ground, and I probably looked a bit crazy, but I went up and said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, what are you up to?
What are you doing that for?
And did you explain to them what that meant longer term?
I did.
Because of course they're in the
they thought they were saving the world.
Exactly. They think they're saving the planet by planting trees on land that is for growing food.
Yeah. On a more positive note on this, there is somebody that is down with the farmers movement that is looking into providing food through forestry. So all it is not lost, but we
need to think seriously. We need to be aware of what's going on.
We need to be aware. We need to call out the National Trust and big farming estates. If you walk somewhere and you suddenly see defences going up, it's time to start asking questions.
Yeah. Because if we're aware, we can start making a bit of noise about that and get them thinking about what they're doing.
And if you're a farmer that has been kicked out of National Trust ground or a tenant, then I think at some point everybody needs to get together and start making a noise about it.
Make a fuss, because that's their livelihood's gone.
The farmers that I know, they've just taken it.
But I think farmers have had such a shitty time of it for so long that they've kind of got used to it.
Yeah, I think they have,
Which is really sad in itself.
It is, it is.
Well, Dilly, thank you ever so much for coming today.
That's okay.
Is there any other gems of pearls of wisdom
that I can think of right at the moment?
Okay.
I'm sure when you press stop, That'll all come flooding in.
Well, I can always put stuff in the blurb below, and people can comment, so we can, you know, if there are any questions, I can forward them on to you.
Yeah.
But guys, please share the vid far and wide, particularly in groups where there are people, you know, leafleting about farming. We need to do more than leafleting. We need to change the way we behave as consumers, don't we, Dilly?
That's definitely what we need to do, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's okay.